What's up, Math 8? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Math with Mullins. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 3.2, solving one-step inequalities. Today we're going to break it down into 2 days. Day 1 is just focusing on how can I solve one-step inequalities using addition and subtraction. It is very similar to how we are going to solve with equations. The only thing is that when you are graphing, it's easiest to write with the variable first. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice rewriting the following 4 options. And again, I'm sorry they kind of edited weird, but we're just basically going to flip these around. So right now, this first one says 8 is greater than x. I'm just going to rewrite that so it's flipped around where x is first and 8 is second. Notice that my inequality symbol is opening up to the number 8. So I need my inequality to still open up to the number 8. So I'm going to flip it entirely around so that I can read it as x is less than 8. The next one, -9 is less than or equal to y. So again, I want to flip it around so that y is first and -9 is second. Notice that the inequality symbol is opening up to the letter y, so I want it to open up to the letter y as well. Just remember that line underneath it. So y is greater than or equal to -9 is how I want to rewrite this one. Why don't you pause the video now and try to think about and write down how can you rewrite 2.2 is less than w and -9.8 is greater than or equal to a. All right, for this one, to rewrite it, I'm just going to flip it all around. W is first, 2.2 is next. The inequality symbol opening up to W, meaning I want it to open up to W here. So W is greater than 2.2. And our final one, -9.8 is greater than or equal to A. To rewrite this, A needs to come first. -9.8 goes second. Noticing that I'm opening up to -9.8, so I'm opening up to -9.8 here with my inequality symbol. So A is less than or equal to -9.8. As we work through some questions, you are going to see them written backwards, so it might be best after you're done solving them to rewrite them so that your variable is in the front. But remember, as you rewrite it with the variable, you must also flip the inequality symbol. Here are 2 examples that we're going to try. Once we solve them, we will also graph them. If you want to pause the video and try these on your own, these can be solved the same way as we did before with equations. Just thinking about instead of the inequality symbol, you would just consider it as an equation symbol. So if we see a -2 or we see subtraction, we will show the opposite operation. Here we go. Because I see b minus 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides of my inequality symbol. And yes, you can still draw the line down the inequality symbol just to see the left and the right side. -2, +2 cancels out, so all that's left is b, a greater than symbol, and then -9 plus 2 is -7. Finally, I want to graph this, so I would have my number line, -7's here, 0 is to the right, and -14's to the left. Greater than symbol means open above the -7, and pointing to the right. Let's try the next one. I do see that this one's written backwards, so I can still solve this the same way I would, but when I'm done solving it, I'm going to rewrite my answer so that it's easier to graph. If you also want to rewrite this first, you can flip everything around, including the inequality symbol. I'm going to show you both ways. If I'm going to solve this first, I'm going to start by adding 1/4 to both sides. The nice thing about this question is even though I'm dealing with fractions, I have common denominators already. 1/4 plus 1/4 is 2/4, but I'm going to reduce that and say it is equal to 1/2. So I'm going to rewrite this. Instead of 1/2 is greater than y, we're going to say y is less than 1/2. So when I graph this, it becomes a little bit easier to do so. 0 is now to the left, and 1/2 again would be the whole number 1, so that would be to the right. This is an open circle, and if I'm looking where my inequality is written, where my letter or my variable is written first, it says less than. So I'm pointing to everything less than 1/2, meaning I have to point to the left. See how that matches the arrow? Now, some of you may have rewritten this entire thing first, and you still should get the same answer. So let's talk about what that would look like as well. If I rewrote this entire thing, I would just flip everything around and say y minus 1/4, taking this entire thing and just moving it to the left, flip this inequality symbol to make it less than, and then have 1/4 on the other side. As I solve this, I'm still using the same steps to solve it. I get 2/4, which is equal to 1/2, but notice I didn't have to worry about flipping my inequality symbol there, and I still end up with an open circle pointing left. Here are two that you can try on your own. Let's go ahead and pause the video, copy these down, try them, and when you're ready to check them, click play. All right, we're going to focus on k plus 5 is less than or equal to -3 first. First thing I want to do is finding the left side, finding the left and the right side of my inequality symbol and start to solve. I know I can solve by subtracting 5 from both sides. Once I do that, I get k is less than or equal to -8 because -3 minus 5 is -8. Finally, I'm ready to graph it. -8's in the middle. I have a 0 to the right of it and a -16 to the left. This should be a closed circle pointing to the left. My other example says p plus 0.7 is greater than -2.3. To solve this one, I am subtracting 0.7 from both sides. When I do that, it's like I'm adding -2.3 and -0.7 together. P is going to be greater than -3.0. To graph, P is greater than -3. I have -3 here in the middle. 0 is to the right, -6 is to the left. Greater than means an open circle pointing to the right. Here are two additional problems. Again, they're written backwards, so you can maybe try to solve them first and then flip. Let's pause the video here, give yourself a chance to try it on your own, and when you're ready to check, click play. So first thing I did here was I kept it the same, and I just went ahead and started finding what x could be equal to. -7 plus 3 is -4 is less than x. This is written in the reverse way, so I'm just going to reverse everything and say x is now greater than -4, still having my inequality symbol open to the x. Notice how I just flipped it around. To graph this, I would have my line, -4 is here in the middle, 0 is to the right of that, -8 would be to the left. We have an open circle pointing to the right. If you forgot to flip this around, you might have done an open circle pointing to the left, and that'd be incorrect. You have to make sure you follow the rules of x always should be written first in order to graph it correctly. This next one, I'm actually going to practice just rewriting the entire thing. So for those of you who like to rewrite it, let's try it there. 1/4 plus x is less than or equal to 1/3. The tricky thing about this one is we don't have common denominators yet, but we can easily get them. We are going to multiply 1/4 by 3, and we're going to multiply 3 by 4 to get them a denominator of 12. So this will now change to 3/12, and this one will change to 4/12. Now this should make it a little bit easier to solve. To solve, 3/12 plus x is less than or equal to 4/12. I'm going to have to subtract 3/12 from both sides. As I do that, I'm going to get x is less than or equal to 1/12, so that when I graph this, I have my line, 1/12, then I'd maybe have 1/24, and then a 0 to the left. This should be a closed circle pointing to the left. Next, we're going to move into a bit of some story problems. So we do have to understand the words that we would use to write our inequalities. So as we do that, it says your parents allow you to play video games for no more than 5.5 hours. No more than 5.5 means 5.5 or less. Okay, so that means we're probably going to use the less than or equal to symbol. So less than or equal to 5.5. On Saturday, you already spent 2.8 hours, so how much time can you play video games on Sunday? This just means if I add Saturdays plus Sundays together, it should be no more than 5.5. So I should write this inequality as x plus 2.8 is less than or equal to 5.5. Now that I've written my inequality, I can go ahead and solve it. I'm going to subtract 2.8 from both sides. These 2.8s cancel out, so I have x is less than or equal to 5.5 minus 2.8. If I have to borrow, I get 2.7. So I can watch video games or play video games for no more than 2.7 hours. One more story problem. This would be a good time to pause this video and try it on your own. You had money in your pocket and then you spent $7.92. After you spent that money, you know you had at least $10 in your pocket. So how much money could you have started with? Hopefully you've got a chance to try this question. Here it is. We know we're spending or we're getting at least $10 back in our pocket. At least means $10 or more. So that's the very first part we'll start with. Greater than or equal to 10. Because I spent $7.92, that just means I started with a bigger amount and I'm subtracting $7.92 from that amount. Now to solve it, I have x minus 7.92 is greater than or equal to 10. I'm going to add 792 to both sides. As I do that, I get crossed off inverse operations or zeros, additive inverses. X is now greater than or equal to $17.92. So I started with at least $17.92 in my pocket. That is going to conclude our video on 3.2 day 1. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.